I want you to think about the word immigrant. For some, it brings to mind courage, people leaving everything they know in search of something better. For others, it sounds like sacrifice, resilience, survival. Today, I want to challenge a quiet assumption. Too often, the immigrant story gets grouped together, simplified into a single narrative. But behind that one word are entirely different lives. Some of us were born elsewhere and remember those feelings of early arrival. Some were born in the United States, but raised inside a different culture. And some move through the world carrying identities that others cannot see. What connects us is not our stories being the same, it's that somewhere in each of them is a person who chose uncertainty over comfort. Welcome to Late Night at the Library, featuring Cafecito con LALSA. I'm your host, Andrea, and today we will hear the stories of LALSA e-board members and their journeys that have been shaped by sacrifice, culture, and so much ambition, shared across 5 segments. This is not simply a conversation about struggle, it's a conversation about movement, it's about inheritance, and it's about what we chose to carry forward. Because the immigrant story isn't just about getting here, it's about what happens next. And I will let our hosts introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. My name is Haley. I am the secretary of LALSA.
Hi, my name is Bridget. I'm the 2L rep for LALSA.
Hola, my name is Natalie, and I am the president of LALSA.
So let's begin at the roots, right? Can you all share a little bit about your family and where your story begins? Haley?
Me first? Okay. My mom is a Peruvian immigrant. Her family comes from Lima, Peru, and they immigrated in the 80s to South Florida, to Miami. That's where they still are. My dad is a citizen. He was born in Pennsylvania and raised in Pennsylvania, and that's how we ended up here. But my sister and I were born in South Florida, and then ultimately we moved to Pennsylvania because it's just a little bit safer to raise kids in Pennsylvania than Miami. So made the journey when I was like 6 and my sister was 8. So been up here for like 20 years, but my whole family's still in South Florida.
Wow. So you got Lima, Peru, Pennsylvania, South Florida, you said.
Yep.
And then PA.
Yep.
Where in PA?
My dad's family is from northwestern PA, like way northwestern, in a really, really small town, very rural, not a lot of diversity. And yeah.
Wow. Bridget?
My dad first immigrated here in like the late 1980s, and then my mom came over. She left behind a kid in Ecuador, and then they landed in California, where most of my family is, my dad's side of the family.
Yeah.
And then my mom decided she had enough of California and moved us to New York, and then we've been there for 24 years now.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
yeah.
So do you identify as Ecuadorian?
Yes.
Okay.
I
All right.
do. Yeah, that's sort of been grown up as. I did have a lot of. Sometimes my mom likes to joke that I'm Mexican because I had a lot of Mexican nannies. I like Mexican food. That is my all-time favorite. So sometimes she's like, "You're more Mexican than Ecuadorian."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're hard to not love.
Oh.
That's awesome, Bridget. Thanks for sharing. So Ecuador, California, and then all the way to New York.
Mm-hmm.
And you're here in PA for school.
Just school, yep.
Very cool. Oh my gosh, so many changes. Nat?
Yeah, so my mom, so we started in Dominican Republic. She wanted me to be born in Philadelphia, so she traveled during her last 3 months of pregnancy to Philadelphia to stay here with my family who already had came to Philadelphia. So I was born here in Philadelphia. Then I moved back to DR to start my life, as we normally would. My mom was a doctor in DR. And then at some point, she said, I want to give my kids a better opportunity. So she moved us back to Philly. And, now I'm here in Harrisburg, PA, doing what she wanted me to do.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing it. I think that theme is resonates a lot with the immigrant community about leaving behind an entire world. So your children or generations after you can get what they didn't. So DR, New York, or Philly, you said, the brotherly love, and then Harrisburg. Man, is there a memory that you guys have that that you experienced or have been told from family conversations that sort of captures the early days of maybe your parents in the States, in Florida or Warren, or
Yes, I have a story that my mom loves to tell, because like I think it just really shows the difference between like going from Peru, which was like a third world country, to America. My grandfather in Peru was a race car driver, and he's like,
Shut up.
I swear. Alfredo Beña was his name. He was one of like 7 race car drivers that ever come from the country. So there's like a National Hall of Fame there that he's in.
What?
Swear. The more you know. So when they moved, they had a lot of money in Peru, but that doesn't exactly translate like when you come to the States. So when they moved, my mom is the oldest of 4 siblings. So my papa, when they got here, he bought every single one of them a brand new car. Each one of the siblings a brand new car. And then like things happened and they lost a lot of their money. But but the cars were nice when they first came.
Damn, that's awesome. Oh my gosh, thanks for sharing. That's a cool story. Bridget, do you know any memories or things that you were told from your family just from like the earlier days of struggle?
Definitely a lot of how my mom came. She definitely struggled when she first came here. I remember a lot of them working.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot that most of my memories are from them. I would go to work with them. My parents worked in construction. They had a photography business, so they would bring me and my brother along. So those are a lot of memories. I mean, there's good memories, obviously, too, but that's a bulk of my childhood, them working to provide for us.
So you have memories of being like on a construction site as like tiny baby Bridget, with like lots of like, I don't know, like big construction vehicles. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Even when we were in New York, when it snowed a lot, like not like how it snows now, but like when it snowed, we would be out at like 4 a.m, them piling snow, me and my brother in the car.
Yeah.
Oh
my gosh. Interesting. Nat?
Yeah, I lived a lot of my life when my mom first came here with her. So we always like to say like we shared that part of the story together. Because we both didn't know English when we moved here, so it was a lot of us trying to figure that part out together. So she put me in, I think I was in, I can't remember, 2nd grade or 3rd grade, and I had just arrived and I didn't know what the snow was. So I arrived 2nd semester. So let's say I was going to class in January. So she walked me to school and she didn't have money for her own coat. So she put her coat on me and I was still crying because I didn't realize how cold it was in America. I was like, I don't even know what this is. Like, it's just like, it's going to be okay. This woman had no coat on and just arrived as well. So those are like some of the early memories. After she would drop me off, then she would go back to work until midnight. And then sometimes what she would do is in the morning, come do my hair for school, walk me to class, and then go straight to work for the rest of the day. So a lot of that we lived together.
Those are core memories. So you're from DR, like El Sol, El Caliente, and then you're coming to Philly and like cold snow. Oh my gosh.
I was in shock. I didn't even know what the cold was.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, there are parts of DR that are cold, but I'm not from those parts. So I'm from La Capital. So it's hot, like I had no idea what that was going to be like. Yeah.
Oh
I've never seen snow, none of that. So yeah.
Did you eat the snow when you?
No, I was terrified. I was terrified. I was like, oh my gosh, it's cold.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh my, yeah, that's so interesting that you come from a NASCAR driver.
Not NASCAR.
NASCAR, race car.
Yeah, some kind of race car. I think NASCAR is like a thing, right?
I think
NASCAR is like an actual.
Yeah,
he wasn't in that.
and it sounded like wealthy beginnings for like your family initially in Peru, right?
Oh yeah, yes, they had a beach house in Paracas, is the beach that we would always go to, and they were having a good time. And
Damn.
then, you know, things change when you come.
Yeah.
All the way to construction sites in New York City, from like tiny baby Bridget, like helping, like you said, pile snow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And a photography business.
Yeah.
How was that? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I think that's where I got my love of partying and by my mother. No, it was interesting. It was a lot of like the Mexican parties, like not a lot of American parties that my parents did photography for, but like weddings, bautizos, quinceañeras.
Oh yeah.
So it was fun. I loved going with my parents. We would be, even during school, like a Sunday, we would still be there. But it was fun. We like to sit there. Me and my brother like to eat bread and soda, Coke. That was our staple. We would be sitting there quietly in the corner while they're doing their thing.
Well, they're like working.
Yeah.
And you're just like tagging along, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It was fun. Sometimes we would know the family, so then we would play with the kids too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was different. It's like it was a nice experience. It definitely showed a lot. So like my parents are really doing a lot to provide for us.
Every story, right? Every journey starts somewhere, from race car to construction and photography to leaving an entire career behind and discovering the snow. Oh my gosh. But I think what's important is what happens inside the home, right? We're living in America. We're living in a home where maybe we're speaking different languages, celebrating holidays that aren't necessarily, celebrated outside, right? Outside in the external community. What did home feel like growing up in a household shaped by your like immigrant story, your parents' background? What was home like?
Well, I had like a very stark change in home life, like going from South Florida, surrounded by my mom's family, where there's like close to 100 people at every single get together of like cousins and like family friends that immigrated at the same time and everything. And like in South Florida, like home felt very like a community. Like there was a lot of us, and it was like, my cousins and like my second cousins and my aunts and uncles, and everybody was around. Like everybody was just on top of each other all the time. Like I'm sure you guys get it. Like that, and that was nice. I loved that. And then we moved to Pennsylvania, where like my dad's side of his family is white. So it's like, it's different. It's different. And I didn't have any family in Pennsylvania besides like my aunt and my grandma lived there, my dad's sister and his mom, but her kids were like 20 years older than me and had already moved out and like moved to a different part of Pennsylvania. So like, it was just me and my sister in Pennsylvania at that point. And we went from like, big family parties with like all our cousins and our family members and everything. Like people only spoke Spanish. And then we went to Pennsylvania where it was just me and my sister. And like, I think my mom like really cut back on speaking Spanish and stuff. Cause when we moved, I was speaking, half my vocabulary was in Spanish and I didn't even know. So it was kind of like, I was thinking about that when you were talking about like, you went to school and I went to school in first grade and I was speaking Spanish, like half in Spanish. And it was like, so it was such a culture shock. And I didn't know that I had like any experiences with that. Mm-hmm. Like there was this time where in first grade, we like had to all write Father's Day cards because it was like toward the end of the school year. So it was like June or whatever. And I asked the teacher, oh, how do you spell papi? Like for the card. And she was like, oh, P-O-P-P-Y, like the flower. So that's how like I grew up, like I called my dad Poppy, but I thought it was Poppy, like P-O-P-P-Y forever. And then when I was like 15 or something, I said to my dad, I was like, that's kind of weird that I call you Poppy, right? Like where did Poppy come from? And he was like, Poppy means father in Spanish. And I was like, oh, yes, so true. Like there was like, I think that kind of a disconnect of like the culture going from South Florida to rural Pennsylvania. Yeah. I think there was like literally like my family was the only like Latin American family. I think my county had like 0.02%
Shut up.
Latin American there. I think my mom tells a story that the only like Spanish speaking friend she had in town was a cook at the one restaurant and he was like Argentinian or something. Yeah. So like so I don't remember what your question was, but went from like a lot of community and a lot of like family centered like involvement at home to like then it's just like me and my sister.
Wow. So I just have one question. What did you what did you do with the food? I mean, I can't imagine the richness and the flavors and the culture and just like the vibrant environment that you went from to like in the middle of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, corn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was there. Like my mom is the best chef I've ever met in my entire life. She's an excellent cook. I always say she should go on Chopped because she can like look in the fridge and take like random things and make a meal. But yeah, no, you're totally right. Like we had to shift our palate away. My friends always make fun of me from like, I'm like a really picky eater. Like,
I know.
I'm such a picky eater, and I went from like, my friends always joke around that I have the most bland like American palate, and then like Peruvian food. So like my mom, we went from like. Growing up, my aunt always makes huancaína, which is like this cheese sauce, but you need the ají pepper to make it. You can't get that in Pennsylvania. So like, and there's this big market in Miami called Bravo that's like a giant Peruvian market.
Mm-hmm.
No, like equivalent anywhere up here. I think the closest you could get would be like New York City, like from Pennsylvania.
For
So
real?
just like,
Oh
I mean like a
gosh.
Peruvian market. Yeah. Like sometimes we would get huancaína on Amazon. Like you can get like packets of the squeezable cheese like on Amazon, but I discovered that like way later in life. So yeah, no, we went completely from like having a diverse palate to like Northwestern PA. There's like
Sense.
My gosh.
Yeah.
I do remember you making huancaína. It's delicious.
It is delicious.
Bridget, do you need me to respond to the question?
Yeah.
No, totally fine. So we come from a like two worlds, 1 foot here, 1 foot there. What was your home growing up in New York? I know it's a totally different vibe from middle of nowhere Pennsylvania to more rich place like New York City. What was that like?
It was different. Like I said, my mom's family, she has not a lot of family here.
Mm-hmm.
They're all in Ecuador. My dad, he had more family here, but they're in California. And when my mom and dad moved to New York, they left they came here. They don't really have any family in New York. We had like one distant cousin that helped my mom move. We actually moved to White Plains. We were a little bit in Massachusetts too, so they were all over the place. But yeah, we didn't have a lot of family, and I think that definitely like set me apart from other Latino families, kind of, because they have the big families, the cousins. Like, they have all that. They're friends with their cousins, all that. I really didn't have cousins. I still don't have cousins. I have, like, cousins that I named that are, like, friends. Family friends that I say they're my cousins. But it was definitely a change.
Yeah.
Especially growing up, like, you didn't have all that. You felt kind of lonely, too. You didn't have your family there. You didn't have your cousins. And everybody else was like, oh, I'm going to go to my aunt's house. We're doing this and that. I'm like, oh, I can't do that. But, my mom definitely made it seem like she made it our home. It was just the four of us for a time being. And then my sister also came, my cousin, my uncle who has Down syndrome, he also came. And so for a while we were living like 8 people in one apartment. And that definitely gave me a lot of family. So that was a new change. That was definitely when I was more older that I got to live more with more family.
Yeah, I got to experience that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it definitely was something different that not all families experience it. Like, yeah, everybody has their families, but not really are all together, and they don't get that. My mom never got to see her mom again. My grandmother passed away when I was younger, so she couldn't, while she was fixing her documentation, she couldn't do that.
Yeah.
So that was definitely hard on, I say it's harder on my mom than it was my dad.
Sure.
My dad had his family here, his mother's still alive. So that was definitely something that I kind of saw that, oh, my mother suffers more than my dad did, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was different growing up. I have made a lot of family friends that I now consider they're my cousins. More not blood related, but they're my cousins.
Chosen family.
Chosen family, yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing that with us. Do you think now that you got to experience a more family in the home compared to just the 4 of you in your house, does that do you feel like you have a close knit with just like your household family, or did you prefer kind of more the chaos, the 8 people?
I'm definitely more close knit with my immediate family. Definitely do anything for my immediate family.
Oh yeah.
I liked it, but also, I don't know, I kind of got used to the peace and quiet, which is not a lot to say. Everybody's like, Hispanics are known to be like loud and wild,
Yeah.
but I like the peace and quiet.
And you know what? That's such a, thank you for bringing that up. I think that's a very common stereotype and misconception because, they kind of equate this to loud chaos, 8-9 people living in an apartment and then you're like, no, it's just a board,
Yeah.
So Nat?
Well, my life came with a lot of changes. So in the early stages of life, that sounds wow. But in the early, I want to say from 6 to 11, I grew up in the typical Dominican family household. On the 24th, we get together, we're loud, we're dancing bachata, we're, eating that big pig that everyone likes.
Pernil.
Yep. Pernil, moro, guandules, everything. So I grew up like that, and a lot of cousins. Everyone was already in Philadelphia when I moved here, so it was easy in that sense. But my mom is a very ambitious woman, so that wasn't gonna last long, and we all knew that. So she moved us to Delaware afterward. So I got the peace and quiet Bridget was talking about. And I didn't get to see my cousins a whole lot. But luckily we're in a group chat. And we changed the group chat weekly. The name of the group chat weekly. We're all still very close. I moved back to Philadelphia. I also have an older sister who's super, super Dominican. I mean, if you guys think I'm nowhere near as Dominican as her. But I've definitely kept my culture in. It just came with a lot of changes, moving to Philadelphia, then moving to Delaware. Now I'm in Harrisburg. So as close as I want to be with my family, unfortunately, I am through text, but not in person. So that part of it sucked. I'm sure everyone watched the halftime show, but during the stages of 7 to 11, I grew up falling asleep on the chairs at the party. And then after that, it just got, middle school, high school, focusing on cheerleading. My life got a little bit Americanized. So that, that sucked a little bit, but I remained, calling on the phone, texting, and that's what I do now. So that's just how I keep it.
Yeah. Going back to your mother being ambitious, I now know where you got that from.
She does not play.
Neither do you.
Yeah,
No, she does not play. That's the best way I can put it. If I get an A, she's like, "Why wasn't it an A plus?" That's a typical Hispanic thing. I know I'm not the only one.
Mom, yeah.
So,
They only give one out each class.
Right, exactly. My mom was a doctor in Dominican Republic, so she and I mean summa cum laude, graduate at medical school. So, moving here, she built her own business, and that's why we moved away. And, she only spoke Spanish at the time she built her business. So to her, if I did this, you better do that too. You know what I mean? So, and will. So, yeah.
It's so great. And then coming here, people of color, immigrants, right? Like get perceived as like, just custodians, like
Or freeloaders.
yeah, but it's like your mom had a whole career, knows every word, in Spanish. Like that's crazy. And going back to your like family dynamic, you guys kind of like an opposite where you went from like close South Florida to now here in PA, and you were kind of Dominican Republic, you're your mom, and then you come here with all your family, and then you went to Delaware.
Yep.
So that's interesting. Well, thank you for sharing. My gosh, it was such a great conversation.
You're welcome.
For many immigrants, identity it's not something that you inherit once, right? It's something that we all learn how to navigate from South Florida to Warren to New York, and now New York City, family of 4, and now having a lot of family to Pennsylvania, to rural Pennsylvania, and Dominican Republic to Philly, Delaware, and like now here. Oh my gosh, how did you guys identify yourselves growing up in And how has that evolved over time? I know I'm intrigued to hear Haley's response, just because we were just joking about this, that you're like white presenting, you know?
Yeah, no, it's not a joke. It's like it's frustrating.
So that how do you identify in your heart, and like how has that evolved through so much change?
Well, in my heart, I'm Peruana, and I've told people, and like it's what a good question, Andy, because I felt like I kind of said earlier, I think when we came to Pennsylvania, there is like a pressure to conform to an extent. Like it's almost like, especially when you're coming, like the town that I moved to is like smallest town in the world. Like people are born there, they go to the one high school there, they leave to go to college, maybe they go 45 minutes down the road to the community college, or not the community college, I'm sorry, there's like a college there, but they go to the college and then they come back and then they have kids and then they send their kids to that same school. Maybe they go be the teachers at the high school. Like people will churn out, like, and they'll stay there their entire lives. And like, it's a nice town and I like it there. And I do think eventually I'd like to go back. Like, but there is such a lack of diversity. It is insane. Like I said, my mom's only like Latin friend was a cook at a restaurant. And I think he moved and then it was like my family was the only family. So I think when you move into a town that already has its culture set and like everybody knows each other, everybody knows each other's business, like it's a small town. There's that pressure to conform in that if you're different in any way, or you're like an outsider, or you're coming from a different environment and you're not gonna conform to what this town already has going for itself, like it's like you're creating a problem almost. So I think that's partially why, like, my mom and I stopped speaking Spanish at home, and like I didn't speak Spanish for a long time growing up. I took like Spanish classes in school and I was like out testing the Spanish classes. You know, I'm like in 7th grade Spanish and I take the placement test and they're like, you need to go to like 11th grade Spanish. And I'm like, yeah, well, I spoke a lot of it like growing up, and then we moved to Pennsylvania. We didn't speak it anymore. Yeah. And I think it's kind of hard. Like my mom's name is Inez and it'd be like Inés if we were in South Florida. But like, you know, I think it's kind of hard when you put that pressure on a woman named Inez to conform to like small town, rural, like no diversity. I don't know. Yeah. What was the question?
Inez. No, Mama.
Inez Nelson.
So here's I'm gonna toss you a follow up. Do you see yourself or your family as like a two worlds kind of vibe, or you know, like, have you thought about changing the perspective to like, instead of two worlds, you know, like being a bridge?
Yeah, I guess. No, I guess so. Like, I don't know. It's hard to when like, I didn't really feel that way like growing up because I wasn't really a bridge from anything to anything, because it wasn't like I was like, you know, like here, obviously I joke around. There are people way more Latin than me in ways, like, you know, both of your parents are Latin American or like immigrants in some way. Like, and that wasn't my case. Like my mom was the immigrant. My dad is American. So, and especially like in rural Pennsylvania, like it wasn't like I was helping other Latin, you know what I'm saying? Like there wasn't an other side of the bridge. There was the side of the bridge that was like of like Americans and like not Latin. And then there was like me, like I was the other side of the bridge. And I'm like, I don't know at that point. So my name is Haley Nelson. It's not exactly like a Latin presenting name. So it wasn't really something that I had to struggle with unless I wanted to. So like I could go to school. I didn't have to tell people that I was Peruvian or anything. Like I could easily get away with not telling anybody. Sometimes the eyebrows give it away, which I'm very proud of. Yeah. I'm never plucking my eyebrows. Yeah. But it wasn't really like a quote unquote like burden or like a responsibility that I had to take on if I didn't like kind of put myself in that position. And when you're in rural Pennsylvania, there really isn't any situation where you have to like stand up for the like immigrant community, because one, there's no immigrants there, and two, like everybody's pretty clear on how they feel about it.
Heard, mama.
Heard, mama. That's the tea.
Yeah, that's the tea. Bridget, how did you come from an Ecuadorian background? How is that how you identified yourself? How has that evolved?
Yeah, that's how I identify myself. Kind of like Haley, my mom did not want me to go to public school. She hated the idea. She's like, I need you to be better. So she sent me to private school. I hated private school.
Really?
Yeah. It was the worst time of my life. No, kind of like Haley, like a private school, more white dominated. It was kind of diverse. But for the longest time, I was the only Spanish-speaking student there. Even though in the town that I lived in was very diverse, like we had the Spanish markets, like the Mexican markets, like Mexican restaurants here and there, but like just the school in general, it was very white-dominated. And I think that was also because it was private, so not a lot of Hispanics go to the private route, kind of.
Good point.
So I was definitely for the longest time, I was definitely the only Spanish speaking. But that didn't change how I thought. I didn't think of myself as like a white.
As a white.
No, because sometimes when you check like the boxes for like, oh, like what's your ethnicity?
No, you're right.
Yes.
Like, what am I supposed to? This is American or like?
Yeah, my wife asked me that same question. She was like, "What do you click on those boxes?" I was like, "I click other."
No, people have asked me that. Like, some kid asked me after we took the SATs, whatever. Like, did you check the Hispanic box? And I was like, yes. Like, why would I not get to check that?
There's 2 boxes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. For a lot of people, there's like 2 boxes. Like your race and ethnicity, that's Hispanic. But then I forget what the other thing is called, but it's like white.
Yeah. Yep.
So I'm like, I'm white and Hispanic. No, but back to sometimes it was kind of hard. I definitely like I was even in like pictures, like I saw myself and like everybody around me was white. I had a couple African American kids in my class too, a couple international students too. Like it's a nice little diverse group of kids, but I was definitely the only Spanish speaking one.
Interesting.
So my whenever I would go home, my mom, God bless her soul, she still doesn't know the English language. I've been here for like 50 years to be. But no, I was definitely speaking Spanish. I don't know, like I do identify as Ecuadorian, but sometimes it was kind of hard growing up, especially growing up with like white friends. Like it's something I've been struggling with some of my other friends too, where they're like, I have this one friend who's also Ecuadorian. I grew up with her, but recently now she's become like Ecuadorian is her whole lifestyle.
Interesting.
I don't know. I don't mean to be it as like a bad thing, but like she made it her whole personality.
Oh, I see.
When like she never grew up in Ecuador, and like it might sound really bad when I say it. She never grew up in Ecuador, so she really couldn't be like trying to identify herself. Like, yes, you're Ecuadorian, but you're not to the extent of like your parents were. So like I just thought it was like comparing myself to her is like very different. Like I do speak the language. I do try to make the food. I try to keep the culture there, but I grew up here.
Sure. I
grew up in the US. So like I'm trying to like assimilate myself, not trying to be I'm my own person.
Yeah.
So like that's what and I think a lot of people, younger generations now, are like just the way the world is going, that they want to be on one side. And like sometimes you can, sometimes you really can't.
Sure.
So yeah, that was my thing. Like I grew up struggling with both English and Spanish. I went to Ecuador so many times when I was younger and messed up my whole. I had to I was put in like remedial classes. That messed me up more. I can't speak the language now though. My parents say I speak bad Spanish. People say I speak bad English. I'm like, I don't know what I do.
Yeah. I like that point that you brought up about assimilating. And I think that I don't think you're alone in that situation where a lot of Hispanic people, first gen, second generation, kind of the lines are a little blurred. It's like soy de aquí o soy de allá, you know, like I have a 16-year-old sister and she was born here, but our household is so Mexican, and you know we poke fun of her a lot, but and I'm sure that doesn't help, but I think we're like perpetrating the issue, but heavy on the like assimilating. You know what? Like, you just be that bridge. You be that bridge from Ecuador to here, and Like,
Yeah, like
legit
I'm definitely
embrace.
keeping it there. Like I'm not
Legit.
saying I'm not.
yeah.
Be the
And
bridge.
yeah, be the bridge, Bridget.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Nat?
I identify myself as Dominican. I couldn't keep saying that 50 times more. I think it's very frustrating for Afro-Latinas in general. With this topic is very sensitive, and I will tell you why. I think that when you come here, you are, and I've had this many times, you're just black, plain blank. And while I'm okay with that because I am Afro-Latina, you're forgetting that I am Dominican, you know, and that you struggle with that. You really do, because I understand that I am the skin color, but I wasn't raised Black American. I was raised Dominican. I eat Dominican food. That is me. So I always give pushback a little bit with that. I grew up obviously when I went to Delaware, this was a hot topic for everyone because it was the whole joke. Dominicans don't ever want to be black. They don't. I know I'm black. Come on, but I am Dominican, like plain blank. You know, so that part is very difficult for Afro-Latinas. But I will say that growing up with people who don't see a lot of Hispanics, they're very uneducated. I'm sorry, and I'll just say it just like that. And, you know, I've always been either, oh, wow, you look black. Oh, wow, you look white and black. Oh, wow, your stepdad is white, so you must be mixed. You must be, you know, whatever, just assumptions. Yeah. And while I'm okay with that, honestly, to a certain extent, you just correct it. It gets very frustrating with identifying yourself because it feels like you're always defending yourself.
Yeah.
Or like, you know what I mean? Like you're always like, point. I'm Dominican though.
No, it's literally me.
I'm Peruvian.
No, I'm literally Peruvian. I'm not hanging on to like a
the eyebrows
0.1%. Like my mom is literally a Peruvian immigrant. Like
it's like I'm not Mexican, bro.
No, to that extent though. Yeah,
I'm Ecuadorian.
I do get that I'm Mexican a lot. And they're like, you're Mexican. I'm like, no, I am not Mexican. But yeah, I do. That's an example. Like,
and you know, it's great. Like whatever the confusion is, we're all united.
Very true.
But the problem with it is that you're placing me somewhere outside of Hispanic, and that really bugs me. And it's not for any reason. It's not for any reason that the public may think, oh, maybe she doesn't want to be black, or she doesn't. No, I am black, and that's okay. But I am Hispanic. You know what I mean? So I think that part was frustrating. I also went to college in Maryland, Emmitsburg, Maryland. It is 40 minutes away from here, and it is literally a town with, and I'm over exaggerating, it feels like a town with 2 blocks in it. Literally my college and then a block, where everybody goes to that one bar. And there's just like no one there was Hispanic, nobody. I clinged on to my fiance who was Puerto Rican because it was like the only thing that I could find that felt like home. And he was just, I remember one of the professors telling him, oh, you're Puerto Rican, you speak the ghetto Spanish, so we're going to grade you incorrectly.
Bro!
In our Spanish class. So I think that a lot of Afro-Latinos, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, we get backlash from here. And it's really hard because I will continue saying I identify as Dominican, like, and I'll keep pushing it because, you know, I have to defend myself in a certain way. So, yeah.
Stand your ground, baby.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh my gosh. But I think you made a good point where you know, you have like middle of the country like white folks. To them, we're all Mexicans.
Oh my god. I have another story for you that I just told Andy this yesterday. But when I was in 8th grade, I would go up to the high school to take classes, and one of them was Spanish class. And my sister's 2 years older than me, so there were some girls in either her class or the class below. Whatever. I was in the Spanish class with white people who are older than me. And these 2 girls turned around and they were like, you're Phoebe's sister, right? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, your mom's from Mexico. And I was like, no, she's from Peru. And they were like, and they like looked at each other, whatever. And the girl looked at me and she was like, Mexico. And I was like, no, Peru. And they were like, they just like looked at me and I was like, South America. And they just turned around and then they didn't talk to me again for the rest of the school year or whatever. But you're totally, yes.
Yeah.
Mexico does not encompass all Latinos.
Constantly just defending yourself.
Yeah.
It's the closest country that they see.
Literally.
True. Here's another question that is gonna segue perfectly into our next topic, which is education and law school. But before we get into that segment officially, my next question is, how has your identity, your background, influenced the way that you define professionalism, like today, where you are in law school?
Wow.
We can
Go.
Natalie, go ahead.
I love this question because I struggle a lot with this professionalism thing. I obviously have to be professional as president of LALSA and business law and, various things that I do. I work in-house. But I am a different kind of professional, and it hurts my heart because Americans aren't. I am the professional where I want to, like, instead of shaking your hand, give me a hug. You know what I mean? But I come from that kind of culture. Like, we like to talk, we like to hug, but here you just have to, hey, how are you? My name's Natalie, and it sucks. Exactly. It does really suck that it's so funny. My mom always says, Americans are just dry. And that's exactly how it feels. Like, they're just dry. You know what I mean? So I think I struggle a little bit with that part of professionalism, where it's like I've had to teach myself and mold myself into just doing the whole handshake and being a little bit more, reserved instead of being sweet. Hey, can I bring you a coffee this time? Can I do this? Oh, nice to see you again. Give me a hug. It's not like that here. So with that, I think I struggle a little bit.
That's a good point. I don't know how. I mean, I know how to be professional, right? But like, I don't have someone in my family to kind of like, how do I network? Like, how do I not like the balance between like brown nosing and just being kind? Like we all come from a background where it's very communal, compared to here where it's like individual, like you're like, your own ambition, your own. So like, what if I just want to bring like rice and steak to the, to the firm and just like, to the meeting and just like, but like, so I don't know. That's, Bridget, how do you
I get what Natalie's saying. I'm definitely not a hugger though.
That's okay. Don't touch me.
I think just the way I grew up with my parents, because it is definitely a different time back then, especially when they were undocumented. There was always this fear of like, we did the wrong thing, like something could happen, or like my mom was like always like, gotta keep your appearances, like, so I think in a sense he kind of made me more reserved on me. Like, I'm more a little introverted, so this is all new to me.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
You're doing a great job.
But no, she like, it was very much, like I said, different times, so everything, gotta keep everything nice, reserved. Like, I definitely, like I said, it was more white dominated school, so I kind of gauge that, and the professionalism, like I get that, and I'm like, I assimilate it to that.
Sure.
So like, I definitely understand like the profession. Like, I'm not a hugger, but
you're fine. But like the two kisses though. Well,
you don't that I do that with
so,
only with like his, like people I go to church with, or like Hispanics, like I know that they do it, then I do it. Like, but if it's a white person, I don't.
What you're saying.
Like, I can differentiate.
Yeah. Do you, I know the term, like, I low-key have problems with the word code switching, but I'm going to use it for the lack of better terms. Do you feel like you just unconsciously, just like the way that you grew up, mold into like a different person when you're with like, okay, this is my people, like this is my community, my people, like I can be myself here, compared to like uptight, not uptight, but like introverted. I didn't mean that uptight. Like, like introverted, a little bit more reserved. That's the word that was reserved. In spaces like school, like your job.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely did do that. And when I go back home, I love going back home. I have my group of friends there. I'm comfortable there, and I can be who I grew up as.
Yeah.
Here was a different. School was very different. It was also more white. I came here, I did not like it. I could not find anything to eat. I couldn't find I needed sasson for like
See.
a soup that
Mhm.
I wanted to make. Could not find it in the Walmart, and like the Walmart back home had it, so I'm like, oh, they don't have it here. But yeah, like I definitely am a different person here than I am with my friends who are my cousins.
Mhm.
Like they know that I'm like a different person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good way to put it, and thanks for sharing. I will just put a plug in for Tres Hermanos
I was
Market.
also gonna say-
And I told you about Tres Hermanos. Have you been?
Yeah, I went.
Did you
I was
like
like,
it?
yeah, that was my first time
Sí.
finding it. I could not find it for the life of me.
Today, yeah, Tres Hermanos. Yeah, so go to Tres Hermanos if you haven't already. I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, I'll tell. Now that I hear you guys respond, I understand the question better. I think when it comes to professionalism, like I didn't have a Latin mentor like in the professional world, like until recently. Because I grew up in a small town, and then I went to college in Southwest Pennsylvania, like near Pittsburgh. That also had like, I think the Hispanic population on campus was like 2%. Yeah, it was like everywhere because it was a really small private school that was like it's a lot of people call it like a trust fund school because like multiple people told me like, oh yeah, I'm just here because my parents like are forcing me to get the bachelor's, and like I don't even care about this. And I'd be like, I'm here on so many scholarships and taking out so many loans to like, and you're just here to like chill and have fun, and your parents are like floating the bill, whatever. Like, congrats, more power to you. Whatever. So like it was primarily just like white influence, like everywhere I went in the professional sector. And then after college, when I got a job, I worked in a law firm in like central PA. And like, that's also like, there's not a big Latin American population like where I was living. My mentor was a 75-year-old white man. But he's incredible. Like he cares very much about, you know, human rights and like immigrants' rights. And he would always bring me like, him and his wife would go on vacation to like the Dominican, and like he brought in like a picture book from when he and his wife went to Peru, and like they went to Chile and stuff he was just so sweet, and he was very conscious of the fact that like, you know, I do have this background, and he was one of the few mentors that I've had that like acknowledged that side of me, which was very validating, especially when a lot of people tell me all the time that I don't look like, and that's fine, like it's a fair assessment. But so when I came to Widener, I wasn't used to like having like a Latin community like to hang out in. It wasn't until I met Andrea and I met Natalie, and now like Bridget and I, you know, we're getting closer like through LALSA and everything, like, and with our other friends who like we've all started speaking Spanish together, and that's huge for me because I haven't used it in so long. And then like I kind of feel embarrassed like when we're trying to speak, because I like sometimes I really suck at it and I've forgotten like how to speak it. Okay. And then Andrea and like everybody's so kind about it, and that's what's nice is that like if you're trying, like they're gonna appreciate it. But coming to Widener and finding that community, it was at a LALSA event my first semester. I met Sharon Lopez, who she's like the most amazing woman. She was the first Latino or Latina, like any Latin president of the Pennsylvania Bar Association. Wow! And she spoke at this LALSA event that you and Kim put on, and I was like, this woman is the coolest woman I've ever met in my entire life. I have to talk to her. So I got in contact with her, and like she has helped me so much just understanding like my identity and like just like being a Latina in the legal realm. Like, you know, she's done it, and now she just recently retired, and like congratulations, Sharon. Plug for Sharon being the coolest. But so it's just been nice. Like she's the first one to like, besides, you know, Amos was my mentor, who was just like the older white man. Like he acknowledged that side of me, but he doesn't get it in the same way that like Sharon does. So then like Sharon is like, and Sharon was the first one who told me like last time we met, like she just said what we were talking about earlier. She was like, you have to understand that you're white presenting. And she was like, and that has to be like in the back of your mind whenever you're talking to people like from the community, from like the Latin community and stuff, that like to them, they might not clock, like
won't clock your tea.
They won't clock my tea, mama. So so I think that's been nice that like now as I get older and like find my footing in this profession in like as a lawyer instead of like a legal assistant that I was before, that, you know, there is that level of professionalism that you can have. But I totally agree with you that like my aunt is a businesswoman in Miami, and she always talks about like she has a white coworker from Kentucky who doesn't know the kiss. Like her coworker was like practicing with her, and my aunt was like, just like give me like practice. How would you give me a kiss? And the coworker like grabbed her face and was like a big kiss on the cheek. My aunt was like, no, that's not how you do it.
We're so far removed from that.
Yeah.
The kiss. And somebody did it to me the other day, and I was like,
I love it.
I like pulled back because people don't do it to me.
Yeah,
so then I was like, okay, wait, he's
is
doing
normal.
what I understand.
What you
Yeah.
It's like rude if you don't do it.
No.
Like my, when I go down and visit my family, if I wake up and I don't go give my mama, my uncle, and my aunt a kiss in the morning, it's rude.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's how we all say hi to each other, like at like functions and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
You mean besito?
yeah,
¿Dónde?
yeah. And so our we assimilate, and I'm gonna call myself out, and I be saying the word folks sometimes, or y'all, and like that's just something that like I have picked up from stuff that I've heard, and and like that's not my cousins make fun of me like, damn, you're mad white, but I'm not, and our identities don't shape who we are, and they often influence the paths that we choose. Which is, why we're all here, and I've had the immense pleasure of getting to know all of you and sharing, my law school experience with you guys, and so many of our parents stereotype, and that might not be the case with you all, but right, we have that notion of clocking in and clocking out. Many of us don't have the the privilege of our parents maybe being on like a salary, right? Sometimes we're on construction sites and we're getting paid by the hour, right? And we're subject to overtime, or, right, some of our parents maybe struggle finding employment, like how as we're stepping into this profession where we have autonomy, right? We have that autonomy to go get like an hour lunch. We have that freedom. As we step into a profession with more autonomy, does it feel like freedom? Does it feel like you kind of break the chain, like that cycle? Does it feel like guilt maybe, or a mix of everything? How are you, as you're reflecting now and your background and your identity and your parents' experiences and journey, how do you reflect on like where you are today because of your parents' journey?
Well, you want to go first?
Sure. So as I said earlier, my mom is a go-getter. So even though I spoke about all these professionalism things, those are within myself because my mom is also very much of like, I'll give you a handshake type of lady and stuff. So I did grow up with those principles. I grew up bringing her lunch to the hospital, even though she could come out and get lunch. I will say that it changed a little bit in those moments where she was working day and night to get her business started because she had to accumulate the money to then get her business started.
Right.
But that didn't take too long, so I can't tell you that I'm gonna feel too much of a difference in the freedom. What I can tell you is that being Latina in the lawyer profession is very rewarding, whether you want to admit it or not, because it's giving me the job that a lot of people don't think I necessarily deserve to have or should have, and it's giving me the opportunity to show them that I am just as smart, just as detail oriented, just as sharp, just as fast, just as quick on my feet, or whatever they want to say. So in those senses, I feel freedom and being placed in, where they think I should be.
Sure.
Cutting grass is the funny thing that they think is funny when they used to say to me when I was younger, or, in a bodega or whatever the case is. I feel freedom and lucky enough to be in this spot.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a job, but I would say just the school itself and the jobs itself.
Yeah, the profession. Isn't it like 2% of 2% of the lawyers
Latinas,
in America are Latinas?
I think so, yeah.
You're about to make it 3.
Yeah, there you go. All of us.
Bridget?
Yeah, with the rules with Natalie mentioning, I was in high school, and it's a memory that stays with me forever. My principal, I wasn't the greatest in high school. I blame the school, though, because undergrad, top of my class.
Mm.
But no, he had mentioned I had wanted to drop one of the classes because I started working since I was 15.
Mm-hmm.
Did like tutoring until I could fully like start working at a restaurant and like retail. But I had wanted to drop one of my classes because, like I said, my mom had brought my uncle with Down syndrome and he needed home care. So I had wanted to drop a choir class that they had required. I didn't need to take it. I just was taking it. I wanted to do it, and my principal was like, why are you doing this? Like, you're never gonna, I forget the exact words, but he's like, you're never gonna amount to anything if you don't take this one class. Like,
If you don't sing in the choir?
Yeah, he was basically calling me like a, not rebel, but like I just didn't want to be there. Like, I'm not trying to finish school or whatnot. And that like really stuck with me. And I'm like, well, I think it was just you and the school that made it the way I had finished high school. Because then I went on to undergrad. I clearly could do it. I just wasn't in the right environment.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm thinking with like roles. Like, people perceive you a certain way, but it's not always what it's cut out to be. And then to your other question, I can't say I feel guilty.
Sure.
I do know it's gonna be vastly different, but that's what my mom wanted.
Yeah.
That's what my parents want. They don't want me to be working in
Good
construction,
point.
breaking my back here and there. I don't think they wanted that, and for that, like, I'm grateful that they allowed me to go to school. Obviously, I was on scholarships, so they didn't really have to pay for undergrad. They don't pay for much right now because I don't want to take their money. Like, it very much pains me to do it, asking them to pay for anything. So I put myself through school. Like I said, they were working to put money. The money that they made here went up to Ecuador, to my older brother, to my mom's family. So a lot of that money went to that family. Yeah. So here I knew that I could make my own. I started working at 15. I took a gap year. I was working as a preschool teacher and I was waitressing. Wow. So I get the work ethic. Like, I think I relate to my parents. Like, it's a hard job. My mom did not like me working she didn't want me being in the restaurant industry. She's like, you don't need to do that. You have a degree, like, find something else. I'm like, the degree I had was like, it's not going to get me a cushy job in the office. I was telling her, like, just give me a year. Like, I'm going to get there. But she's like, no, she was very much not happy about it. Because she wanted me to be better than both of them. So I don't say I would be guilty. Definitely it's going to be a change, like, from what they had to do.
Oh, yeah.
But that's what they wanted for me, and that's what I'm giving them. So I think that's where I'm heading with it. Like, I love them for it, and I'm grateful for them. Oh, yeah. Compared to, like, I have another brother. He's also in law school. But I always... it was, well, to my parents, it was either being a doctor or a lawyer. Yeah, nothing else in between.
Yeah.
But he was very much different. He was baby because he's the youngest. So even now, he never had it. He had one job, and that was working in retail, but that was about it. Now he's like, my parents pay for his school. Not his school, his housing. Okay. And I'm like, you have it easier than me. I like to tease him about it. Yeah. But my mom's like, well, he's the baby, so I let it slide. But that's where the difference is. Yeah. But that's because she's trying to get both of us to be more than... Sure. Yeah. Sure. But that's where I think where my head's at.
Yeah. Well, I applaud you for being such a hustler and just working and working and working, and you got that Mexican work ethic.
I wanted to jump in on her point, actually, really quick, before Haley jumps on. I didn't realize that you were asking about guilt in a certain way, but I do want to answer that part, and I want to say that not guilty, but a lot of pressure from my mom leaving her doctor career to me now being in doctorate in America. So it's like, you better do it, because she left hers. So you better come over here and you better do it. And while she's a CEO and she's great, and she doesn't give me that pressure, I have it because, you know, she used that last $50 when she was working paycheck to paycheck when we first got here to buy me that brat scooter.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, you
Mhm.
better get those $50 back,
Yeah.
and you better give them back to her. And you know, anything else that she's missing, I mean, like, I'm dying to get her like a house or something.
Yeah.
She may not need it, but I'm
Sure.
dying to do it because
Sure.
it's like, you better do what she, you know,
Yeah.
what she left behind. Because I couldn't imagine, right now, and I mean, all three of you could say the same. I couldn't imagine just dropping this right now, or even 5 years in. My mom was an
Mhm.
emergency room doctor. She did surgery.
Yeah.
I couldn't
Wow.
imagine just dropping
gosh.
it. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like, you know, not taking your parents' money and that feeling of giving back really, stems from a place of like, I don't have a choice. Like, I'm doing this or I'm doing this, you know, and I think that's a very common theme. I know, like, most of my trust is usually just fueled by fear. Like, my parents gave me her, and then like they're like, you're doing this or you're doing this. Like, there's no other choice. And heavy with like the construction and the breaking your backs and stuff like that. I think it's like immigrants pay they pay with their labor, you know, with their breaking their backs and the aches and the pains, and it's just like so grateful to be able to break that cycle and be here and, you know, use your brain instead of your body to pay your way forward. Haley?
So I've been thinking about the question, like, in listening to you guys' response. I don't know that I have similar input. Because what was the question again? You said the structure of like our parents.
Yeah, structure of your parents' working experiences, and if, you know, you see comparing that to, you know, what you're able to do now with the education that Widener, right, is giving us. Do you stem from like, do feelings of like guilt, freedom, of gratitude, you know?
Definitely gratitude. Like, I know that I've wanted to do this since high school when I joined my mock trial team, and I was like, I love highlighting. So I don't know. I just kind of struggle with the question because my mom came here following my dad and like uprooted her life to just follow my dad and live where his family lived and like give him a chance to like be in his community because they had been down in my mom's community for like almost 30 years or something by the time my sister and me were born. And then when we moved up here, they kind of switched roles where like my mom, when we were in Florida, my mom stayed at home and my dad went to work. And then when we came up here, they switched for whatever reason. And my dad stayed at home and my mom went to work. And she worked at a bank just down the street. So she had like that kind of 9-to-5 structure.
Sure.
She wasn't doing like physical, like manual labor. She was sitting at a desk and like doing her thing. But she's been through a lot of hard times, like in the past couple of years, and a lot of stuff happened to her that she doesn't deserve. So I guess in that sense, I feel like a lot of responsibility, not even responsibility, because it's not even anybody's putting it on me, but it's like, it's the same thing as, you know, I'm like, I will get my mom a house or I will die trying. Like, my mom has so much that she deserves that like has been either taken from her or like luck or fate or whatever hasn't been in her favor, and it's not fair, and it just like makes me so angry because my mom, like, through everything she's been through, like coming to this country with her family and then uprooting her life that she uprooted her life once to come to this country, and then she uprooted her life again to come to Pennsylvania, and then like in Pennsylvania she's had to uproot her life a couple of times. And I don't think this is quite like on par with the question you're asking, but like, it's fine. But like, I feel that drive that I just can't wait to start making money and like sending my mom money like all the time just so that she can like go get groceries or like go get a coffee or something, like take herself out to dinner. Like, because we're in law school, like you're not supposed to work the first year, and then it takes a minute, like you're not supposed to work the first year, and then the first summer usually you're going to get some kind of internship that's unpaid. So like money is already a struggle, and like I grew up, money was always a struggle, like never known financial stability. So that's like, I guess the finish line that I'm chasing is just like, I just want to get to the point where I can make things easier for my mom, because after like everything she's been through, like multiple rounds of completely picking up her life and starting over. Like, she deserves some stability, and I want to be that stability for her.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
I don't even know what this. I don't even know you. Like you had me like speechless. But I will say I love. But yeah, I love that there's a theme where, in a way of like giving back to our parents for picking, like, uprooting themselves, coming here, breaking cycles, not breaking our backs, and I think that really encapsulates the immigrant story. You know, even though we're so different, right? And but again, it's very, very easy to just like slap a label and call it a day. I think just because we're running out of time, we're gonna skip to the next segment. We know that, right, with every step forward, with every uproot, with every change, you know, there comes a question of legacy, and not just where we come from, not where our parents come from and our experiences, but now it's, I feel like, up to us to dictate where we want to go. And how do you when you think about the sacrifices that made your journey possible, what does success mean to you now?
I think, to me, success just means, I mean, I'm kind of repeating myself, I think success just means financial stability at this point.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because there's so many other issues that stem from financial instability that, like, you know, then people get tense, and then things get tense in general, and people get stressed, and like there's just a lot more negativity that stems from like not being able to keep the lights on. So
very true.
I guess that's the goal, is to keep the lights on and more.
Money can fix problems.
Yes, anybody who says money can't buy happiness is just like, I'm like, sure, yeah, people with money say that.
True.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Yeah.
Yeah, stability. I definitely just want to get into the actual work first, being comfortable, not having to, I mean, obviously we're going to work long hours, but it's a different type.
Yeah.
You know that at the end of the day you can go home without worrying about other things. So like you're just stable in life, and then you can start focusing on like building families or like helping back with your parents. It's more secure. It's more of a secure job than working as a waitress and not having all that money that can be there for like a couple months.
Yeah.
But yeah, stability, like Haley said.
Yeah.
That is the end goal.
Mine is a little different. I want to say that success is going to look like, for me, what my mom gave me, in a way. So my mom and my stepdad have been married for quite some time, and I'm not going to butcher the time, because if my mom sees this, she'll be upset. So I met my stepdad when I was like, I want to say 10, 8. So they've been married for quite a while. I'm 26. And I, you know, the love that they brought to me in the house, you know, my stepdad's way, he's never made me feel any kind of way. And my mom, she's always been, you know, a go-getter, I guess. And just like still, while she's go-getting, she's still providing the love for me. So I just want success to look like, for me, like a very loving home. I live with my fiance now, so I think that's why I'm coming from this spot of just saying that I just want a healthy home, and I know that the legal profession can get toxic. So I just want to say that, you know, I don't want to lose the Hispanic side of me, the loving side. I just started learning how to cook, by the way, guys. So,
nice.
Yeah, so I just, you know, I learned my rice, I learned my beans, and all of my chickens. So we're good there. I even learned how to make pernil. So I'm trying to build a home that looks Hispanic, but also, you know, carrying the legal profession and not being toxic about it. You know, leaving work at 5, which I know it's not gonna happen. But there has to be some days where I can do that. So that's what success is gonna look like for me.
Yeah, heavy on the the time. I mean, I grew up in a household where I didn't really see my dad. I saw my dad for like 5 minutes before I went to bed because he was, putting in 13 hours work at a pizza shop. My mom, worked from 5 to 5 to 6, and just kind of came home, cooked dinner, provided, and called it a day. But I have a cousin who is a realtor. Shout out, plug to Che. And he's a realtor, and takes his girls to a dance recital, and spends like Thursday evening, doing some sort of activity. And I think that is, while yes, money and financial stability is a priority. I think having that time to just like be present with your family is, I think, a big factor for me.
Wait, can I tell you real quick that I worked for a judge this past summer, Judge Jose Raul Arteaga in the district court. He's a magistrate judge in the district court of the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. And he always told me over and over that the most important title that you can have, like in any profession, like for him, he was speaking personally. He said the most important title is dad. He was like, when I leave here, I leave all this stuff here and I go home and I don't bring it home to my wife and to my kids because they need me to be dad. They don't need me to be judge.
Yeah.
So like, I think that like exactly what you said, like you got to be able to leave at 5 sometimes if you want to have a life.
Yeah.
Like you can't make and this is something else he said. He was like, you can't make your whole personality being a lawyer. Like you really can't. You have to be a person who is a lawyer.
It gets addicting. It gets addicting.
It's
I
easy
feel like
to fall.
I make my life about law right now.
Yeah.
Like talking to my cousins and they say something and I'm like, wait, don't do that.
No.
That could be a problem.
Yeah, that's really good. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah,
Thanks for
he's
sharing
really
that.
cool. Also plug to Judge Arteaga.
Well, Haley, Bridget, Nat, thank you so much. And I just want to close off by saying that every immigrant story begins with a leap, whether that's picking up your stuff from Peru to Florida, whether that's coming from Ecuador to California and then New York City, from the Dominican Republic, leaving an entire career behind, and settling down in Philly. Right? There's a decision to step into the unknown, with the hope that something better awaits, right? But you've heard today, I've heard today, and what we've heard today reminds us that these stories, our stories, your stories, don't end with arrival. They don't end with just dropping your bags somewhere, right? They live on through generations, more specifically through you, reshaped by identity, by so much ambition and so much possibilities. So thank you again to our guests and for being so vulnerable and for being so open and sharing so much about yourselves. I know this may be outside of your comfort zones. And to everybody listening, right, to family, whether your family has arrived generations ago, and you were part of the story yourself, may we continue to honor the paths that brought us here, and remain so intentional about the paths that we create for those who follow, because true power of the immigrant story isn't just perseverance, it's transformation.